let's just talk about corporate social responsibility. Is it just something that's sort of given lip service? Joe, how does Broanmain view and work with the corporate social responsibility side of business?
So we are already involved in a local charity. We support it quite heavily. They look after children who have fallen out of education. So they're not bad children, and they're not offenders or anything like that. They just don't have the skills and the tools to get back to school, to get into school, to stay at school. And this charity looks after those children and gives them a level of education that they and their families can cope with and support. Excuse me. I think in terms of box ticking, I think that is definitely the case for a lot of businesses. But I mean, everything we do at Broanmain is actually done with integrity. So that we wouldn't pretend to have any corporate social responsibility. We would either do it properly or not. And this is just another step for doing that, really working with CareerForces. It's obviously lots of businesses are looking for it when they want to work with you, but that to us isn't a reason to do it. The reason to do it is it's very lucky we've landed in nice places in life, and we need to help people that haven't had quite so much opportunity or things have gone a bit wrong for them.
And Andy, I mean, your take on it? I mean, it's on your front page of your website. How does CareerForces view CSR?
We're dealing with people here, and people are challenged in many, many different ways. The people I'm trying to help and my company are trying to help have seen things that have affected them. And it isn't just military people. We're seeing it more and more in the health service, in the police, in the fire service. So our emergency services are coming under more pressure now than they've ever done. Now, when that's your vocation, when that's your career, and then you suddenly find that it's getting a bit too much for you, the pressures that you're under, which are quite often pressures that you and I in our day jobs wouldn't ever think about, to admit that, and then to have to come to a conclusion that you may not be able to pursue your career anymore, that weighs on people's shoulders hugely. And some people just can't share it even. They can't share it with family, can't share it with relatives, and they can't share it with their colleagues. I came from a military background where if you couldn't cope with the pressures of work, you were seen as weak. You didn't talk about it. You couldn't talk about it. I mean, it's 25, 30 years ago now, and thankfully, perceptions have changed massively. We have a much more understanding society. We understand that, that psychological, mental illnesses can be just as devastating to the individual and the families around them. So there is a whole support mechanism in place, and we try to tap into that. The combat stress, for example, the On-Course Foundation that build back service people after operational tours. They're all doing incredible pieces of work, and they do get some grants from the government, but that money is tight, and so therefore businesses, I think, in the future are going to be able to do so much good by things like combat stress, like On-Course, like Broanmain, just one or two people, and it changes the lives of people forever.
And I think actually to add to that, you touched on the point that these charities are often really heavily reliant upon government funding or funding from, I know that the charity we work with has historically had some funding from Children in Need or Comic Relief, all the big funders, but it's really dependent on them providing that funding. And our charity last year had a lot of funding withdrawn because government was spending it on something else that it seemed to think was just as, well, it probably was just as important. It's not for me to say what is and isn't important. So they absolutely relied so much more heavily on businesses to support it, and it would be wrong of business to not recognise that we have a responsibility to help to try and level the playing field for people, because it's so not level at the moment.